Hey, you there! I want to remind everybody that if you end up liking this video, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. And right now, YouTube says that over 90% of people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, so it would really help, and with that... Hello everybody, I'm Joel Homie, your guys' host for another great episode of the Joel Homie Show series, Gaming Thursday. So this video is being recorded with a new microphone, and this is actually my first time recording a video with this microphone in particular, so I do apologize if any sensitivity levels or anything along the lines of that are off. So, once again, my apologies if anything is not to perfection for today's video. But anyway, so the topic of today's video is once again taking place in the great universe of Fallout 4. And the building behind me that you can see here is in Sanctuary, which is my player home in this playthrough. And this is my barracks building where all of the settlers sort of sleep and have a bunch of entertainment options to pass the time. And there's also resting benches and tables up on the very top floor on the roof for being able to rest outside and just pass the time in general. But the one thing that we're actually focusing on in today's video is actually not only in this building but also my shopping district. But what I've done is I've built full sort of lit power armor display cases with full glass going all the way around, and they're very nice looking display cases for power armor. So what I'm going to show you guys today is actually going to take place in the barracks building first, and then we'll walk over to the sort of shopping district building that I have where all of my shops are. That I have another suit of power armor in the same display case, but it is slightly different in the way that it's actually placed. So I'm going to go ahead and get into first person, and we'll go ahead and take a look at this building here. So I do have voices turned off for today's video in-game so that you guys don't have to listen to anything in the background, but I do still have a lot of the other sounds on, so I do apologize if anything is distracting in the background. So here is the power armor display case that I built first. So as you can see here, we have the power armor T60 Tesla suit. This is one of the two that I actually have on display, and as you can see here, this display case is actually on a sort of like a shack floor piece. But if I actually enter the building menu, you can actually see that this is actually raised up off the floor. So you've got all of the normal floors all over the place sitting down here on the actual foundation for the house, like you can see there. And then this is actually placed on top. Like you can see, there is actually another floor off to the side there right underneath. And then what I've done is actually centered it pretty perfectly on the end so that this is perfectly sort of centered on top of this floor right below it, so that I could actually place this really nicely and fit it into the middle of this sort of building. So this is actually my largest building in Sanctuary. This is a 5x5 sort of a shack flooring layout, so that I could actually put this power armor in the direct center. And as you can see here, what I've actually done here is utilized a lot of the different sort of DLCs to build this up. So these windows are actually coming from the Far Harbor DLC with the building menu in the one of the sections here that you can actually see. If I go into structures, you can see here we actually have sort of warehouses, and what I've done here is actually gone to walls, and I've actually got a bunch of the large windows, as you can see here, that I actually used to build up these. Like you can see, it actually wants to clip there even while there's already a window there for some reason. And what I've done is, and since this is actually different from the normal shack sort of building or sort of pieces that you get in the vanilla game without any of the DLCs installed, is it's actually a little bit taller. So what you actually get here up on the second floor is actually a pretty cool view of the back of the power armor suit as well as the front, but you actually get a view from above, and since this is taller. And then what I've done here with the sort of roof for this is I've attached a bunch of lights to it like I have with the floor in either corner, as you can see there. These are also from one of these sort of add-ons, but this is actually, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Wasteland Workshop. And then up here I've added some more of the lights to come down onto the top of the suit. And then as you can see there, the floor, actually sort of rather the roof for the display case is actually sort of glitching out. You can see a bit with the graphics. This is because the roof that I actually used is actually once again from this sort of warehouse building supplies, and this is actually the roof that I used here. And as you can see, this is a just sort of like a normal square roof, but you can see that it sort of has like a sort of like a eave on either side. And what I did here is I placed one, and then I placed another so that I could get the eave on both sides. And the graphics on the top they're sort of overlapping in a weird way that glitches out. So what I did to sort of cover up for this just a little bit, because it didn't bug me too much, is I placed a bunch of luggage. So we've got a bunch of suitcases, steamer trunks, we've got metal boxes, a little bit of different luggage, sort of like coolers and footlockers. We've got a bunch of stuff different on top of this, so that we can actually cover it up just a little bit. And that is the one that I used, that I built in my barracks building around of all the other sort of entertainment for the guests, as sort of like a really nice piece for them to look at. And the reason that I originally did this, and the reason that I think a lot of other people would probably want to do it, is because in Fallout 4, I think just about everybody, unless you distinctly decide to not, you will end up with a lot of power armor suits, especially if you get the DLCs like Far Harbor and the Automatron DLC and Nuka World. They all have special power armor suits, at least one or more. And this is the one from Automatron, as I mentioned earlier. This is the Tesla T60 suit that is sitting in the middle here, because I had way too many suits that I just couldn't display, so I thought it'd be really cool to take all of my buildings in Sanctuary that I've built on top of all the foundations, and put a power armor suit in the center as sort of like a nice display piece. And the one thing that I did decide to do that is completely optional is actually to put a fusion core in the suit. This is actually a fusion core that was probably charged to around 90 or 98, somewhere around there, so it is a good fusion core, but I stuck it in there because if it isn't in there, it sort of looks like the power armor suit is a little bit incomplete. And also that I've always thought that the power armor fusion cores just look cool in general when they're actually in the back of the suit. So that is the first one that I built, and you may have noticed, if you have a keen eye to detail, is that all of the floorboards are actually going sort of long ways here, so that they actually stretch the length of the building. But there is actually one here that, as you can see, is actually opposite to the rest. This is due to the case actually being slightly off and glitching out and not allowing me to place it any other way, so this is one of the disadvantages to getting the display case just a little bit off. But as I said, this one is perfectly in the center and fitting in between all of the normal sort of shack flung pieces for here. But now we're going to go ahead and run over to my shopping district building, which in a live stream that I did recently for A Gaming Thursday Live, is I actually built up another display case in this building, which, as you can see, is actually a 4x4 layout of rather than a 5x5, which is what the barracks building is over there. And then this building, once again, does have full power, so this is basically the exact same display case, but it is a little bit different in the essence of how it is actually placed. So trying to walk in here past Strong, you can see this is the display case that I have set up here. So I'm actually going to quickly sort of try to get Preston Garvey out of the display case so that we can actually take a look at everything. So I'm going to quickly use a glitch with the mannequin so that I can actually get him out of here. So backing sort of Preston Garvey out of the display case, we'll go ahead and take a look at all of the power armor in here in all of its glory, without Preston Garvey obstructing it. Not that Preston Garvey isn't a, good-looking man, I guess you could say. He's not ugly or anything. But anyway, moving back to the display case, as you can see, this suit of power armor is not nearly as unique, but it is also quite a special suit, as it is a Mark III set of EXO-1 power armor painted up in the Hot Rodder shark paint scheme that I have built, actually sort of placed in the center of this display case, which, as I had mentioned earlier, is basically the same, but once again, if you have a keen eye to detail, you'll notice that since this is a 4x4 layout, this can't actually go perfectly in the center, fitting in between all of the sort of normal shack flooring. So what I did for this one, it was a little bit more tedious, but I did pull it off pretty nicely. Is what I actually did is, as you can see here, these floors are 4 different shack flooring that are all placed in the center, and this floor is actually sitting perfectly in the middle, sort of taking up about a quarter of every single different floor piece that is actually on top of the normal house foundation, as you can see there. And this, as I said, was a bit more tedious, but what I actually did to do this is I actually utilized some of the smaller shack flooring that I could actually get to center this, because if you go into shack flooring and if you go to the smaller pieces, you can actually clip these on when the windows are not actually installed, and you can actually make sure that this is perfectly centered, and it will show you if the center board is straight, so that you can actually match it up with these lines, so that you can actually make sure it's centered. And once I had the suit in the middle, I put all of the lighting up, got electricity running to it, put up the windows, and this set was actually a lot easier to install rather than the last one, because I was actually able to build it in the center of a bunch of different floors rather than having to line it up perfectly in the middle of one, so that all of the other larger pieces could fit in the center. So as you can see here, what I was just talking about earlier is I have all of the larger shacks next to, or the larger shack flooring next to my storage over there, but attached to that is the smallest shack floor that is actually wrapping around the display case itself, rather than what we did in the barracks building, which was actually the larger flooring wrapping around the display case rather than the smaller ones. And this is actually not perfect. Like you can see here, there's actually a small gap in between the display case and the flooring. But the nice thing about these smaller floors that I noticed with my playthrough, or at least in my copy of Fallout 4, is that it actually allowed it to do a little bit of clipping. Like you can see here that the display case is actually clipping into this just a little bit, but wasn't hitting sort of like the little I guess you could call it a hitbox for lack of a better word. It's not a hitbox, but it sort of registers as the same thing. Like you can see here, I can place it there, but I can't place it in the middle of something. That's why I'm calling it a hitbox. And then similar to what happened with the last display case in the barracks building, is I actually have the sort of graphics glitch going on the top. So what I did is, as you can see here, we have the power running down to get power to all of the display lights. And I did something similar to what I did in the barracks building, and I put a bunch of luggage up here. But since this is my storage district, this is actually supposed to be storage for a bunch of items that are going to be sold to customers coming in from the wasteland, even while all these are still empty and just sort of for decoration. But we've got wooden crates, we've got metal boxes, we've got toolboxes, suitcases, steamer trunks, we've got all types of different stuff, and we've even got footlockers here as well. And then to add to this, I really wanted this to be my true sort of shopping district, so over here we've got a bunch of storage just to go along with it. But this isn't actually meant to be part of the display case. I just thought I'd mention it because I'm actually impressed with how well this came out, due to how difficult it is actually to place a bunch of boxes on the shelves in Fallout 4 with the building menu. And then, like the last suit of power armor with the Tesla T60 suit, I did once again decide to add the fusion core and leave it in, so that the suit actually looked a lot more complete without the fusion core missing. And what you could do as an option is, if you actually have some fusion cores that say are low, like maybe at 36%, or even down to something like 9 or 2%, that are really low and aren't going to be very useful, you could place those fusion cores in these suits if you are low on fusion cores and don't want to waste them, but have some ones that you actually have ran down and can't actually use for much longer. You could actually put those in the suit and then actually use those just for display, and just to have them there, just sort of for the sake of it, as for decoration, of course. But this suit is also, once again, just here for the pure factor of decoration, as I actually do have a lot of power armor suits, specifically EXO-1, as in this playthrough, this character is actually pretty much in the end game and has mostly completed the game, besides a lot of small things. So I actually have another identical suit of this, so it wasn't much hassle to put a EXO-1 suit here in the center. But anyway, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I really wanted to show off these power armor display cases because this is something that I came up with by myself. I didn't watch any YouTube videos to come up with these ideas. I purely was just sort of brainstorming ideas to get rid of a bunch of these spare power armor suits that I had just sitting in my sort of main building that you can see there. Like, I currently have something like 30 suits of power armor, which you can get more, but when you have as many as I do, or even if you have more, like myself, I wanted to display a couple of them without having to shove them all in the same building like I've done up here, with literally just about every special suit of power armor. So I took a couple and sort of built display cases for them. But with all that being said, if you guys enjoyed today's video,